Well, ladies, you're in for a treat because you've heard me talk about our daughter in the Lord, Pam. But I have actually asked Pam to come and share today at Bible study because her story about love protects. I mean, gosh, Pam, I'm getting choked up because you and I just talked about what we're going to talk about, and it does something to you, you know?
Yeah,
So,
reflecting back.
mm, okay. So this is going to be really special because this is your story, but man, we're woven in there with you. So, uh, Pam, we just prefaced this whole lesson about what it means that love protects, and I told them a little bit about the story of how you came to stay with us and for a couple years. But let's jump in because I really want them to hear a bit more from you
Mhm.
about the significance of our relationship together. So, Pammy, you live right now in South Carolina with
I
an
do.
amazing man and three kids. And whoop, whoop, we're praying that your house sells so that you can
Yeah,
move back to Delaware. We are so excited for that. But you and Dan met all the way back in like middle school,
yeah, I think it was sixth grade.
sixth grade, like at a birthday party or something, or a going away party or something like that.
Yeah,
And what age were you when you became a Christian?
I was 17, I believe.
Okay. But you started hanging out at our house. Like I just remember in high school, you and Dan were buddies, and that was it. You were just buddies, but you were here when my mom and I would make peaches, or you would show up at holidays some.
Yep.
And you have a wonderful mom who lives in Newark, who's
Yes.
taking care of your sister who has a lot of special needs.
Mhm.
But there was a void. There was a piece that God knew he wanted to meet in your life that would really help shift you from that girl of sixth grade to the girl that you are today.
Yes.
So many years later. I was going to ask you a question. I guess it's not in your notes, so here we go. You started hanging out early on at our house. Just you would just come and hang. What was
Mhm.
it that drew you to to being here? What was it about the home or the people or what?
I think it was peaceful. It was just
Mhm.
very, very peaceful and welcoming, and I felt loved every time I came. Um, and that was attractive because I felt good being around you guys. And it was fun.
So when we talk about this fragrance, right? We're the aroma of Christ. When you're coming into the space, right? 34
Mhm.
Bristol Lane, it was this like this
Yeah,
is where it's
peace.
that aroma that draws you in.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then you actually came to live with us at the age of 19. There was a potential move that your mom was going to have to make, and you had already started local community college with a full scholarship to become a nurse, but you have
Yeah.
to live in Delaware. So there was this discussion, right? The panic of, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to move and forfeit all this. And
Yes.
the Lord put as Dad and I were praying, he put a picture in my head of a bridge and the word bridge to him. And it was like, let's offer this young lady housing and family to be a bridge to get you to your ability to be independent with a nursing degree. So that was quite a big shift from the girl from sixth grade that just started hanging out to, you started to live here, but it didn't take too long before you were part of the family. Now, before we really jump into these questions, I had asked if we could share a little cool backstory. When we talk about how God sees the entirety of your life, right? Even before you were conceived, how God places protection already in place, whether or not you see it ahead of time. And when I was pregnant with Chip, we talked about names, and of course, Chip's a fifth, so there was no guessing on that name. But we had a girl's name picked out, and it was going to be Pamela Shane Keever. Pamela after was my pick because I like my sister's name better than mine. And Shane, we made the female version of Shane because it was a Christian world-class surfer. That was his pick. And but yeah, Pamela Shane was going to be a girl. So we had a son. So here we are pregnant again. And these are our names, Daniel Timothy, Pamela Shane. We have a son. And we're like, well, it would have been nice, but we have our two boys and this is great.
Yeah.
So here comes Pam living with us, and we're all kind of like, haha, that kind of cool. Like she's in the house, she's like in the family. And It didn't take too long before a couple months, and you started calling me mom, and
Yeah.
you started calling him dad. Like it was a natural thing. I remember
Mhm.
going, hmm, like, where did that happen? But that started to grow. And so before we jump into those questions specifically about the protection piece, I would love for you, because I don't think I can do it. Can you share about the best Christmas present ever that you ever gave us?
Yes. So it's actually funny because Dan and I have the same birthday. But uh, on our birthday, when I was born, my mom could not think of a middle name for me. And so I grew up my whole life kind of wanting one because I never had that, right? And it's just different. Most people have middle names. And and I knew that when I became a citizen, I'd be going through this whole name change. And so when I was thinking of Christmas presents for you guys, I was just like, gosh, what can I give them that they can't already get? Um, and one thing that was really cool is being able to ask you guys to give me a middle name.
Hmm.
And it was just so full circle because you realized in that when you guys gave me the middle name Shane is just like how God saw this little girl being born prematurely in Colombia on the same day as Daniel.
Like, see, that's
Uh,
why I can't talk about it.
and he just knew all these pieces that I would come in and become a daughter and that it would just connect all the dots. And it was just so special and so just incredible to witness God's a sense of humor in a sense too, because
Yeah.
like, wow, we never saw that one coming.
No, no.
So it
That
was
was, I remember you were always, you're a great writer of appreciation. And of course, Dad's love language is words of affirmation. So he has every letter ever that on even a piece of trash, if you would write it on that, he would keep it. But that day that you wrote that, it was like a scroll type of thing. And it was outlining the relationship that we have. And boy, we lost it. We lost it. And then your birthday was not too long after that in January, and we're at dinner, and we went and got that gold monogram with would be your new initials once you're married. So
well,
yeah, I just love that backstory. So truly, right? You have been the daughter that God wanted us to have before I conceived two sons. So I think that's cool. I think it's important for women to hear that, because there are times where you just wonder if God's paying attention to the details in your life, and he
yes,
really is.
every little bit.
Yeah, he really is. So, I've shared with you, and of course the ladies, you just heard some of the introduction about love protects. And so with that frame of reference, right, love protecting is a covering, like a shed covering, a roof covering, over a relationship. There's a lot of parallels for having brought you under our roof, and more than just the physical roof, right? The spiritual, emotional, mental, familiar roof
Mhm.
that you're here. So I just want to have you walk back some memory lane, wherever God takes you on this. And
Yeah.
do you remember the day, um, maybe some of the angst of when you were going to be leaving, maybe the area because you didn't have housing, to maybe some points of when we said, "Hey, do you want to come and live at our house?" What kind of things come back to your mind?
I just remember the uncertainty and like the helplessness, right? Like of I was I think at the time of talking, I was 18 years old.
Mhm.
Um, I had like a part-time job at the Y
Mhm.
and feeling like, gosh, I've worked so hard and life is going well and it's looking up and then like the roof or the floor falls out from under you and just that unknown like how is I don't see how God's going to provide in this.
Mhm.
Um and just the anxiety of that of those moments when you get bad news and you're just like what am I going to do? And then also just the relief of like oh my gosh, Lord, you are so good. I didn't even think like when I was talking to you guys there was no part of me that thought they're going to asked me to live with them. Like, I didn't think that. It was more of like, do you have any suggestions for what I should do? And so it's just incredible. It's just incredible how God provided.
Mm. Dad asked you a question. He said, "Do you want me to be the guy that pays the bills?" Right? Because you just lived here without, we weren't going to have you pay for it. You just get your degree, right?
Yeah.
Do you want me to be a father figure or do you want me to be a dad? Do you
Hmm.
remember that moment?
Yeah. And it was actually a very, the fact that there was an option to get a dad was so incredible for me because um, my relationship with my dad growing up was just not very existent, and so there was this longing, right? Like, I think anyone who has had either a tough relationship with their father or has had a non-existent relationship with their father will recognize that there is a missing piece, that that's not how God intended it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that I had that missing piece, and so having someone offer, like, "What do you want for me to do?" Uh, it was really cool because I needed that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember dad asked you that question and you got kind of teary. You're like, I need a dad, right? And so then we all hugged and I guess we prayed or something, and then you went off to your room or something, and dad looks at me and he goes, I don't have a clue what to do with a girl. He's like, oh my gosh, this is so scary for me. And
Yeah.
the first thing he did was he gave you, at this point, you were just about 19, he gave you a curfew. It's like, you're going to be in the house by 12. Nothing good happens after 12 o'clock. And
After midnight.
I'm going, oh gosh, here we go. And you were like, whatever you need, dad, I'll be in by 12.
Yeah.
And there's the beginning of protection, right?
Mhm.
There's the beginning of, he said, I don't trust any men. And so you're going to be in the house under my roof by midnight. And I'm thinking, we didn't do that to our own children. He goes, yeah, but she's a girl. And it brought up this Papa Bear thing
Mhm.
in him, was just pretty funny. And kudos for you for falling in line with that. I was like, oh, this will be interesting.
Yeah.
So you really, it didn't take too long for you to become part of the family. We've had a lot of people live with us over the years, right?
Mhm.
But you had been in and out of our house as a visitor, right?
Mhm.
Over the years, you got to know us, but moving in with somebody is a whole different vulnerable
Yeah.
thing. And so you started off like the house guest family, but what do you remember like that was significant for you that you started to feel that shift, that this is my home and
Mhm.
this is my family? Now let's just put this out there. We have a very good relationship with your mom, right? We have a
Yes.
very healthy relationship with your mom, and your mom loves you to the moon and back, but she
Yes.
literally is full-time caregiver for your sister. And so
Mhm.
there's so many limits there. So as people are like, what happened to her mother? Mom was renting a small space and it
Mhm.
just didn't accommodate another person. So this really was a blessing because your
Yes.
mom stayed local and you had a place to be, but God added to the foundation that your mom provided. He added
Yes.
to it. So I just want to kind of put that out there. But somewhere in there, you became family
Mhm.
and not just someone hanging out for 3 years until you got your degree. So what do you remember about that season of your life?
I just remember, I mean, in a lot of ways, and my mom did such a fantastic job caring for me and loving me. But again, she was a full-time caregiver for my sister, and money was tight, and things were just hard. And so there was a sense of like, I got to fend for myself, right? And so when I moved in with you guys, I think what I started to experience was like just how I didn't have to fend for myself,
Mm-hmm.
and feeling so loved and feeling so cared for. And it just came so naturally because you guys were mothering me and fathering me, that
Mhm.
it just kind of all came into line, and I started viewing you guys as like a mom and a dad, um, and it just grew really organically, I feel like.
Mhm. Some of the let's just brainstorm some of the memories early on that to me were like, this is what mothers and daughters or fathers and daughters do, right? What are some of the things that when you think of a date with dad, what do you think of? Because he started having dates with you.
Yeah. Um, Ice cream was a big one.
Uh-huh.
Um, just like going out to dinner, and him being so sweet and opening the door for me, and just
Mhm.
like showing me how a man is supposed to treat a woman, and seeing how he treated you, and just like, oh wow, that's beautiful.
Mhm.
Um, and just feeling very protected.
Yep. I think of how much you like to run errands and go food shopping with me.
Yes.
As dumb as that sounds, right? And so
Yes.
there's this it's this desire that I think the protective piece is that, hey, you are wanted. I
Hmm.
want to be in your presence. I want to hang out with you. That it's safe for me to say, can I run errands with you?
Hmm.
And I think that you're not worried about being rejected,
Hmm.
turned away for some simple things like that. So that's a
Hmm.
memory. I also think of watching you bloom on some of the things that you were able to do here, maybe for the first time. And one of the things you always desired to do was like cook and grow in your cooking, your baking skills. And that first Christmas that you were with us, you really wanted to make Christmas cookies. And so I remember saying, here's a budget. Let's go get whatever you need for making cookies. And dad came home from work late, and the whole island, the kitchen was covered in cookie dough and all the decorative stuff. And he looked at me
Yes.
and I'm like, she will clean it up. This is just what we do, right? This is
Yes.
how you make
Yes.
cookies. And but just that putting things in place, providing so that like you wouldn't have gone and spent your YMCA money on cookie decorating things, but it's
Yes.
creating that environment where you
Hmm.
really could bloom. And now you're a mom of three kids and this is what you do, right? You are the
Yes.
nurturer, homemaker, but I really think that that time here was protecting your development, your
Hmm.
maturing in that housekeeping,
Hmm.
from a standpoint of managing a household,
Yeah.
managing a budget, managing food.
Hmm.
Um, I think there were
Yeah.
special things that were allotted for you at that time. Uh,
Watching you host, I had never seen people host. I mean, we just didn't really do it. And so watching how you managed cooking for a large crowd, and just making everyone feel loved and appreciated and being welcoming in your home. And I think that
and you
was.
were part of that. I mean, you were
Mhm.
helping me, you were like right alongside with that. And I think that's, again, this is all creating that environment for
Mhm.
someone to bring the best out of them, right? There are
Yes.
so many good character qualities that I see in you that are in your mom. And
Mhm.
then it's almost like God was complementing that with
Yes.
things that he was bringing to light from time with us. Um, we're going to get into some of the specific ways that love in this home, right? Particularly provided that covering of protection for you. And so I'm going to introduce the area that I want you to share. Now in Bible study, we just kind of did this drill on our own about
Mhm.
specific areas, but we want to hear from you, right?
Yep.
How, for example, love protects somebody emotionally. So what was your experience in terms of experiencing emotional protection while you were living here?
Um, I think emotional protection is just like, what I think of is it doesn't use words to like break us apart. Um, it's tender and loving and encouraging. Um, and one of the things that I think of actually, which is funny, is there was a time when I was pretty new and living with you guys, and I broke a plate,
Mhm.
and I remember feeling panic. Like I was just like,
Hmm.
"Oh no, I'm so sorry," and I was expecting kind of yelling. Like I was expecting a harsher, like. why could you how could you be so careless kind of thing. And I don't know what I was doing. I don't remember how it happened, but I remember like complete patience and understanding and like just this gentle response of like it's okay. We just clean it up and move on. And I remember just almost like I was holding my breath like oh,
Mm,
that's all that's going to happen. That's okay.
mhm,
And so
mhm,
how we respond to our family and like how do we respond when things happen, accidents happen, or the people are annoying, right? Like, and that just right, like when you live with someone full time,
mhm,
um, you can get on each other's nerves a little bit.
mhm.
But how you guys responded to me in those moments of just gentleness and love, um, and just that protection that comes with that.
Yeah, because what you say really can do a lot of damage
Mhm.
very quickly, right? Or how
Yes.
you respond. You're talking about some of the quirky stuff when you live together, right? Um, I think of you when I go into the back closet area. Now, one of Dad's pet peeves was that Pam's home, all the lights are on, right? Like, am I right?
No, 100%.
Right.
That's Matt's pet peeve.
So Dad had a choice. He says I can either keep fighting with Pam about this, or he put these switches up in your area of the house so that when you forget, because you would, to turn out that back closet light, it goes
Yes.
out on its own. So it's funny. I walk in there and the light comes on, the fan comes on, and I'm like, and I don't have to think about turning it off because this was
Yes.
Pam's space. But again, that's the point. You can feel emotionally safe for when things are not jiving well, because you're not going to have your neck wrung,
Mhm.
for those kind of things. That's good. How about spiritually? How did you feel you were under this cover spiritually while you were here?
Um, I felt like there was I mean, you can get a lot into like generational curses and what's involved with them, but some of them I think is just uh patterns of responding and thinking and beliefs that aren't true that get passed down family to family because that's
Mm-hmm.
all the people know. And one of the things that I really, really am thankful for is that living with you guys and observing your marriage and observing how you treat others and like really observing, right? Because it's one thing to go to a dinner with someone and see them be kind to each other. And it's a whole other to live with someone and
Mm-hmm.
see all the moments and still be able to say, no, they're really like that. They treat each other with
Mm-hmm.
kindness and gentleness and love. And I think there was a lot of generational curses in my family line that I'm doing completely and radically different with my own children
Mm-hmm.
because I came under the covering of you guys and
Mm-hmm.
learned new ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that is just such a blessing.
Yeah, it's like a place to learn how to apply spiritual principles
Hmm.
in your relationship with Matt, or your parenting, or your health, or trusting when the rug gets pulled out from under you. It's like
Hmm.
it's everything comes back to let's pray together and let's talk about what God would do.
Yes.
Biblical principles with stewardship, right?
Hmm.
With your finances, how to make decisions. Again, when you are living in that environment where Jesus is always at the front, where this we need to ask the Lord for his direction, that is a protective covering. It's modeling, and it
Hmm.
becomes the way you and Matt are now structuring your home, which is huge.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
huge. How about uh I'm gonna I how about physically? How about physically? What did you see God do?
So
Protect you.
physically, it's funny. One of the things I think about is there was a time, and I was during nursing school. I was pulling a lot of all nighters, and they were at the library. I was spending like 12 hours studying, um, and it was long. It was just long hours, especially right before exams. And there was one day that I had to go. It was like 9 p.m., but it was like winter time, so it was dark, and I had to go study. And I wanted to park somewhere on campus. Like dad was asking me where I was going, and I wanted to park somewhere on campus because it had free parking, but then I'd have to walk over, I think it was to a friend's dorm or to the library, one of the two. We were going to study together. Um, and I just remember like, this is what I'm gonna do because of the free parking, and that way I don't have to pay for it. And dad was just like, why can't you just park right there? And I'm like, well, you gotta pay it. I think it's like $1.25 for a half hour or something. And dad just comes out with like a big roll, like I think it was a couple rolls of quarters, and he's like, no, you just park right in front of the building and go straight in. And it was so silly because like realistically it wasn't that much money. I could have paid for it, but it was just the kind of thing that I was like, well, if I could save money, I will. And to have dad like just physically be protecting me and thinking like, that's probably not the safest, let's not do that.
Yeah.
And providing for that, that was really sweet. I remember being very touched that he cared about that.
Hmm. Yeah. It all comes back to the curfew. When will you be? Who will you be with? I mean, and he is asking an adult this question. But
Yes.
because the relationship was so good, you didn't see it as a control freak. You saw it as
Mhm.
protection,
Yes.
a physical protection. Socially, there's an interesting one. How did God protect your heart socially?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel actually like I notice it. I guess I notice even the effects now, but um before I was dating Matt, even when I first moved in with you guys, I didn't know who Matt was. I didn't know who. I wasn't dating anyone, and I
Hmm.
was wondering, kind of like, when will I date someone? And it's funny because dad filled that piece that I think like every little girl has of being wanted to be loved by a father. And I think when we don't have that piece, a lot of women will seek out that
Mm-hmm.
love in other areas. And I definitely can see that in my past of all I wanted was to be loved and cherished. And I
Hmm.
didn't even know what it looked like. And so
Hmm.
what I was looking for was one, not being loved and cherished because I didn't realize what it was supposed to look like. Um, but it was flawed. And so it was really cool to first experience what that feels like, because then it changed how I responded socially to lots of
Hmm.
things, right? Like
Hmm.
what I would accept and what I would not accept from um, not just even dating, but friendships, right? Like I
Hmm.
knew what it felt like to be respected and loved and cared
Hmm.
for, and I wasn't going to just like allow
Yeah.
myself to be a doormat, right?
Right.
Um, and but it's just interesting because now that standard of like being now marrying Matt, right? And living with Matt, and just like I know what it feels like to be loved and cherished. And I'm so thankful I have a husband that does that. But I think a lot of the reasons I married a man that loves me and cherishes me is because I felt that. And so it
Yeah.
just affected everything.
That was something Dad wrote. That's been his mantra with Matt from day one. You will love and cherish her. And so he would challenge him along the way. Does she feel cherished by that?
Mhm.
And he wrote a whole letter
Yeah.
when Matt proposed, he had a letter ready, about this is about how what it looks like to love and cherish. And that is really a papa putting a wing around you,
Mhm.
protecting you. And I know that has made a strong impression on Matt,
Yes.
over the years. Like it's almost like if you mess with her, you're messing with him,
Yes.
right? And now that Matt has a little girl, oh,
Mhm.
you know,
Oh
he's
yeah.
going to be doing the same thing.
Yes. Yes.
Otherwise, he'll be taking someone's head off. Um, he also protected you mentally. That's an interesting one. What did you come up with for that?
Um, mentally, honestly, I feel like it comes back to like that relationship with God, and like what learning to see things with a spiritual perspective as well. And when you feel like the mental attacks from Satan, and being
Hmm.
able to rebuke Satan and take not control in the sense of like you control your destiny, because that's not what I'm saying. It's more of like, Satan, you can't mess with me, and I will choose to trust God, even when my emotions and my fears and all of these feelings and all of these thoughts come.
Hmm.
Like I can hold them to the truth.
Yeah.
And that's just like a totally new way of thinking and dealing with things. And I feel like it's a perpetual lesson, right? Like I'm dealing with that now with selling a house, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what's it gonna happen? But I know that God is good, and I know,
Yeah.
just a whole. It's a new pattern of doing things.
Yep. And again, it's all these are then there's so many more stories we could tell, but these are just examples of because you came literally under a roof, but it was a
Mhm,
safe, emotionally protected,
mhm.
spiritually, physically, mentally. It was a safe place. Look at all the things God was able to do in your heart so that when we launched you, when you got married, right, you were really a far different, healthier Pam
Yes.
to step into being married and then pregnant twice and then having a foster little guy that you adopted and just
Mhm.
all the journey for you guys.
Yeah.
It's amazing what God has done in your life. There's one last, we'll just keep it short, but it's one thing I've told people about. Now, your relationship before Christ, you've always been a beautiful girl, but your clothing attire did not accentuate your heart. It accentuated your beautiful body, right?
Yes.
And so here you come into the house and dad's going to be dad. And he was like, we got to talk about some of these wardrobe changes. And you got it already started dealing with you but it was like fine tuning, right?
Mhm.
All because love protects because
Yeah.
he's like, there ain't no guy out there looking at those cute shoes. Right. And he would just be like, we need to deal. And I remember that one day you had come home from Marshall's and you had these cute little outfits and you were gonna have dress up, show dad what you got. And there were a couple items that he was like,
Yes.
you're not, and I want to shout out to you because you were so teachable. As dad started making like, now if you bend over, this is what a guy is thinking. I watched him. I think he was nervous as all get out, but love protects. And he's like,
Yes.
she is not wearing that out there. No guy is going to say, that is so cute. And so that
What a
protection
cute
that
floral print.
yeah, they're not looking at the floral print for sure. And so I just saw that as a huge step for dad to be able to say those things to you. But girl, you were responsive. And I remember you holding one little thing going, okay, I'll return it. And I was like, yes, Pam, that's the right response. And you returned everything he told you to return. And
Mhm.
then you came back home because you had worked hard with that money to go buy those cute items that you had to then return. And he said to me, he gave me a budget and he said, no, you take her out and you let her pick out things with a new
Mhm.
frame of reference,
Yes.
protected. And
Yeah.
that's like, and I'll pay for it.
Mhm.
And you're so frugal, like you can stretch that money so far. But then you came back with these, like we prayed and God honored your ability to
Mhm.
find great deals, and you came home for show and tell again, right? Because
Yes.
that's what love does, it protects.
Yes.
And and it was a whole different experience. And that prepared you to date a guy whose heart was so into modesty and
Mhm.
purity that like God used that interaction with dad to prepare you for Matt,
Yes.
you know. Which is I just love that, but I kudos to you because the old Pam would not have bought into that, in
Yeah.
terms of someone telling you what you can or cannot
Yeah.
wear.
It's definitely, I mean, I don't think anyone likes being told what to
No.
do, but I do think it's different when someone is telling you to do something for your own good. And when you know that they're looking out for you and
Yep.
just seeing things in ways that you don't see, um, I think it's very easy to be teachable because you have that trust that it's not against you. They're not like dad wasn't telling me don't wear that because he wanted me to not have good clothes and nice
Right.
clothes and he wanted me to wear a sack, right? Like that's not what he was doing. He was just looking out for my best interests and he was thinking like a man, which I can't think like a man because I'm not a man. And
Mhm.
so that it's just different, I think. And I felt so loved, which is why I felt like it was easy to be teachable.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say for dad and I, because of course he's not here, he will listen to this, I know. We just love you so much. We're so,
Yeah.
so grateful that God gave us your name when I was like 24, 23 years old,
Yes.
and so you've been in our heart. We just didn't know it till years ago. And Dad and I are extremely proud of you, extremely proud of the woman you are, the wife, the daughter, the mama, and we're just super grateful that you're in our lives. And so thanks for sharing today, Pam, your story. And I'm sure there's probably a few wet eyes in the crowd of ladies. And I hope that just really encourages them. Ladies, I
Me
hope this
too.
encourages you that you have that opportunity to be a shelter, a protective shelter in the way that you love. And you definitely can change um, eternity. It's like where someone's going to end up spending their eternal life. You have an impact by the way that you love and protect. So, Pam, thanks for hopping on from South Carolina, and we will maybe one day we'll get to introduce you live in Ocean
Yes.
City to the ladies. All right. Thanks for sharing.
All right. Love you so much. Bye.